Mr. O's Music.
Hello you lot, and welcome to Mr. O's Music. I'm Mr. O, and this is music I like. Today we're looking at the final album from The Police, Synchronicity. The Police were a group who began in the late 1970s, comprising the trio of Andy Summers on guitars, Stuart Copeland on drums, and Gordon Sumner, better known as Sting, on bass. The band were very unusual. While trying to promote themselves as a punk rock outfit, their musical style borrowed much from reggae, and then there was the fact that there were only three of them at a time when a trio was really highly unusual. Their first album did well, but not spectacularly. However, their second album, Regatta de Blanc, released in 1979, produced two UK number ones, Message in a Bottle and Walking on the Moon, and their popularity continued to grow over the next 2 years. In 1982, they received the Brit Award for the Best British Group, and by 1983, they were being hailed by many critics as the biggest rock band in the world. The tensions of constant touring, together with Sting's increasing fame and his desire to branch out with a solo career, however, took their toll, and this, their fifth album, ultimately was to be their last, reaching number one in both the UK and the US, and only losing the Grammy for Best Album to Michael Jackson's Thriller. In terms of going out on a high, leaving your audience wanting more, however else you want to describe it, this album takes some beating. So, enough boring history, let's get to the music. This week I want to focus on a few tracks in particular. This isn't because the whole album isn't worthy, but simply because I want to give quite a bit of time to a few of the songs. The first track, Synchronicity 1, begins with a rapid syncopated synthesizer, quickly joined by a cross-rhythm cymbal. This settles into a belting on the beginning of each bar, which gradually increases in energy until the full band enters. Dun da dun da 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 dun dun da dun da 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 ting ta 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 ta dang ta ta dang ta ta ting ta ta dang ta dang ta ta dang da 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 da. It's just a great opening to an album. Vocals in harmony proceed to give examples of apparently unconnected events that might actually be connected, with a repeated syncopated line, synchronicity, ending each phrase. The chorus produces gorgeous clashing sounds by having two tracks singing two different alternating chords over a long repeating pedal in the bass guitar. The final verse brings a counter melody to the four in the piano and guitar in octaves, dun da da dun da da, as the bass line becomes much more virtuosic and the vocals soar over the top at the absolute extreme of their ranges. It's such a great opening track and it immediately grabs your attention. Next comes Walking in Your Footsteps, a mellow and atmospheric introverted look at how we are sleepwalking towards our own extinction. And unlike the dinosaurs, we appear to be entirely complicit in this direction of travel. While the apparent threat at the time of writing of this song was nuclear war, this song seems more relevant than ever at the moment. Oh My God has a wonderful bass line and a rhythm guitar that reveals this band's reggae roots. And again, while this song is really about a struggle with understanding how an apparently kind God can allow the suffering we see every day in the world, the chorus, "Take the space between us, fill it up some way," again, takes on a whole new meaning during the enforced lockdown we're all suffering from at the moment. It also ends with the line, "Do I have to tell the story of 1,000 rainy days since we first met? It's a big enough umbrella, but it's always me that ends up getting wet," which first appears in the Police song Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic a few years prior to this, and is destined to appear later in the song 7 Days on Sting's solo album 10 Summer's Tales. The next song, Mother, is extraordinarily disturbing, starting with an off-putting 7-beat ostinato and rocking bass line with a screaming saxophone over the top. The vocals are performed in a type of Sprechgesang, in which he bewails the fact that his mother is always ringing him on the phone, and how she has managed to psychologically dent him so badly that he cannot have a normal relationship with any other woman. Ending with a maniacal cackling and a rising tam-tam note, it's as if the Police had decided to take the whole of Pink Floyd's The Wall and attempt to distill it into 3 minutes of music. It really does have an element of madness to it. Amazing, but not to be taken too seriously. I hope. Miss Gradenko has a lovely chorused arpeggiated guitar with the vocals almost entirely sung in unison by the whole band, which give it a somewhat rough, unfinished feel, but makes it very catchy. It's very short, 2 minutes, but it is a really interesting texture and musical idea. Over the flip side, yes, this is still just the era of vinyl and cassettes, we find Synchronicity 2. I absolutely love this song. Lyrically, it explores more deeply the possibilities of a world where everything really is interconnected. One man's mundane existence and struggles with work and family appear to influence the arrival of a Loch Ness Monster-style creature at the door of a Scottish cottage. It begins with odd keyboards and wailing guitar before opening up into a wide soundstage with chorused guitars and Sting singing wordlessly over the top. The verse sets the scene in an extraordinarily dysfunctional family. We have to shout above the din of our Rice Krispies! And the pre-chorus is a wonderful alternation of chromatically rising line with tonic pedal. Mother chants her litany of boredom and frustration before the chorus itself opens into a seemingly calmer and brief description of the Scottish lake. The story continues with some great lyrical moments. I particularly like the delivery of the third verse, describing the drive home with a real punch of articulation. Packed like lemmings into shiny metal boxes. The song ends with the mysterious Scottish lake releasing the creature and leaving us to wonder what happens next as they repeat on the fade out many miles away, over and over. It's a real masterpiece of a song, and it's a pity that it's perhaps somewhat overshadowed because of what comes next. Okay, so Every Breath You Take is one of those sorts of songs I suspect any band in equal measure both hopes and dreads they will create. There's no doubt that everyone knows this song, and also no doubt that Sting has to sing it every time he goes on stage and hates doing so. The lackadaisical version at the end of the otherwise brilliant live album All This Time is proof enough of that. This song has a lot of baggage. Some consider it to be a simple love song, which it isn't, while others have focused over the years on its odd message, the fact that it seems to be describing a man stalking a woman, and how disturbing that is. First of all, neither of these interpretations is what it's really about. The middle eight makes that clear, but second of all, if we're going to get upset about the lyrical implications of a song by the Police, let's have a quick think about Don't Stand So Close to Me, a song about a school teacher struggling with his feelings for an underage pupil, which was penned by a man who had himself previously been a school maths teacher. None of this matters. The music is what we're here to look at. The song begins with a beautifully over-chorused and reverbed guitar riff with prominent string sliding. Sting sings the first line, also being the title of the song, beautifully and simply with effortless ease. The beauty of the music contrasts with the much more sinister lyrics, with each verse ending, "I'll be watching you." As we move into the chorus, synthesized strings are added to the gorgeous texture, with the vocals becoming longing in their quality and ending with a beautiful bluesy third. "Oh, my poor heart aches with every step you take." The middle eight provides a real contrast here, with long-held strummed guitar chords and slow descending octaves in the piano, as Sting bewails the loss of the relationship and suddenly reveals the vulnerability that he is trying to cover with the false, sinister bravado in the rest of the song. "Since you've gone, I've been lost without a trace. I look around and it's you I can't replace," ending with the crooning of "I keep crying, baby, baby, please," with a beautiful last ting from a guitar harmonic. This is perhaps the first example of what I consider Sting to have become a real master of in later years, the middle eight or bridge, so much so that often it's my favourite part of his songs. An instrumental verse is followed by a chorus with repeated octave piano pedal texture, and a final verse with repeated interrupted cadences, leading to an outro with backing vocals repeating the words of the earlier verse as Sting sings longingly over the top, "I'll be watching you." It really is a perfect piece of writing, and there's a reason it's the song everyone knows from this album. King of Pain follows with gently syncopated alternating chords and marimba offbeats. Sting meanwhile describes scenes where a particular object is out of place and alone, without us really perhaps understanding the connection between them. The chorus follows, ending with him describing himself as the King of Pain. The verse is then repeated with a busier accompaniment together with the drums as the other band members interpolate "That's my soul" up there in between each line, describing the solitary objects. Further verses follow with, towards the end, our finding a moment where Sting is left without any accompaniment, singing the first lines again. A really carefully crafted song. Wrapped Around Your Finger is probably the weakest of the album, and that's not just because Sting attempts to rhyme apprentice with Charybdis in the first 2 lines, although that obviously doesn't help. There's nothing wrong with it, and as with many of the songs on the album, the reggae influence is quite prominent. I just feel we've got better songs to come, so on we go. Okay, so Tea in the Sahara is a wonderful track, amazing concept lyrically and musically mysterious, alternating between the tonic and flattened mediant in the verse, while the band create a swirl of sound around the lyrics, describing how a group of women beg a man to have tea in the Sahara with them. The chorus heightens the swirling texture with gentle drums throughout. He acquiesces, and they express their delight. They wait in vain, however, and he leaves them to burn in the desert. An extraordinarily surreal concept with a wonderful soundscape to match. The final track, Murder by Numbers, is one of those that starts with you thinking the beat is in one place, but it isn't. You know how jazz musicians do that thing in the beginning of songs where they go 1, 2, and it's really off-putting as a listener because you instinctively hear the click as being on 1 and 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then suddenly, just as the song is about to start, you realize that it's the other way around. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Well, this track is very similar in how it starts. Stuart Copeland starts with a very strong drum beat, which you are likely to hear as being in 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But after a few bars, Sting then enters, seemingly completely out of time, except he's not. He's perfectly in time. Now, I've managed to train myself to hear it correctly, but honestly, it's not easy. What sounds like it's in 3 crotchets per bar is actually 6/8. Where what we hear as the strong beat is actually the second beat of the bar, and the other 2 clicks are on the 2nd and 6th quavers of the bar. The 2 tricks to help you hear it right, should you wish to, are that the track actually starts on the first beat of a 6/8 bar, but that's almost impossible to pick up on. Copeland does, however, also play an apparent cross rhythm just before Sting starts singing, which it then turns out subsequently is giving Sting the actual meter. So he goes 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then just before Sting comes in, we get the cross rhythm. But, once that you've decided on a killing, first you make a stone of your heart. And if you find that your hands are still willing... The first verse then is very confusing, as already mentioned. Sting appears to be singing completely out of time, and it only settles once the guitar enters for the second verse. Lyrically, it's all about calculated killing, and as one might expect, the final verse gets rather political, suggesting that the top of the profession, that profession being murder, is those who are elected to lead countries. It ends somewhat oddly with them clapping themselves, and the very sparse sound of the applause reminds us that the band really does comprise of only 3 individuals. This then is an album with a lot of variety, some really interesting tracks, and some that have very much stood the test of time. It definitely doesn't contain all of the Police's best songs, but it does contain an awful lot of them and is a wonderful send-off to their fans. At a time in the early 80s when many bands were moving towards a very heavily produced sound, this is a really refreshing album with lots of musicality. Overall, it has an extraordinary energy. There's a real sense that because there are only 3 in the band, you hear each of them as a soloist throughout. There's nowhere for them to hide. If you haven't ever explored the Police, this is a great place to start. For this week, then, that's it. Thank you for subscribing, commenting, clicking the bell, and all that shenanigans. It's the best way to know when the next video arrives and to encourage me to make it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.